for those who don't know me, I am Helen Patterson. I am the founder of Life Works Well. And I started Life Works Well initially because I worked in corporate and I managed some life work programs. And so the name made sense. Work was just part of life. And without well being, nothing works. So, life works well when you do. But I kind of got away from that and was doing my traditional HR consulting, helping scaling organizations create heart centered, high performance, and healthy cultures. And it was just so difficult because first of all, I reignited my business right before the pandemic started, and it was really just the toughest time to try to create heart-centered, healthy cultures because it was all about layoffs and just tough times, and it just seems to continue. So I'm kind of came up with a passion for mentoring over my journey. And so I'm starting to lean more into mentoring with heart and creating mentor cultures and spreading my love for mentorship. But I also love to read, and I'm a knowledge seeker, and I will be forever. So I just come up with ideas sometimes. And I said, I think I'm just going to start a book circle with heart and bring people, whoever have a passion for these issues that we are dealing with in cultures, in workplaces, in community, in our own inner beings. And so it's been such an amazing journey. I've known Nava through Coralus, which is a community I'm involved in that is filled with wonderful people who really want to make a difference in the world and change the world. And so I'm just blessed to have been able to have many authors this year share their book, their learning, and bring people together to connect and have conversation in a very casual way. So I'm just going to introduce Nava real quick. She's a lifelong innovator, an entrepreneur, an author, researcher, educator, speaker, and facilitator. I mean, just an amazing woman. We are very blessed to have her here. The book itself, CONEtrolled, How We've Lost Our Freedom and How to Reclaim It, is just amazing. And I mean, I'm just getting through the first bits myself. And I see why it's an international bestseller. And she's also a 4-time award winner. Dr. Nava Israel. She has a PhD also in epidemiology. I'm going to mess that up and bring an interdisciplinary lens to everything she does. But beyond this, we all have our titles and what we've accomplished. At the center of it, we're really just beautiful souls coming together. And I love that she's a philosopher at heart on a mission to leave the world a better place. And I think that would be all of our journey. So I also align to her radical kindness and generosity. And I think we're just going to have amazing sessions learning from Dr. Israel. And I just wanted to welcome everybody else that's here. I'm going to kick it off with a couple questions, and then Nava is going to come out and share some of her concept and teachings from the book. And then we do open up to questions. Feel free to put where you're coming from in the chat. Any questions as well if you don't want to hop out later. And it's really just interactive. So thank you again. Welcome, Nava. I'm so happy you're here. And so I'm going to kick it off, and I ask every author this. What's your why behind this? What made you decide to write this particular book? I'm sure that's packed because it is 400 or 500 pages, but yeah, what was it that ignited that spark in you to actually put all this in writing?
So I think, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. This is such a delight. And as you can imagine, every author loves speaking about their book. So this is really fun. Um, the why. I think the why has been with me my whole life. It's the what that materialized in the last few years, or the how. Um, ever since I was really very, very young, I've always seen patterns. And I've always seen sort of, I don't know how to say it, beyond the veil. Like I could tell bullshit. Let's put it in simple words, right? I could tell bullshit. So one of my earliest experiences with that was I was born in what then was the USSR, right? The Soviet Union. And the level of propaganda there was really mind blowing. And one of my earliest memories in kindergarten there was that, unlike kindergartens here, where you have, children's pictures and, cute things on the walls, in what then was Russia and now is Ukraine, hopefully not to be Russia again, is that on the walls there was a big, big painting of Lenin, and Lenin was sitting at his desk, writing. And our teacher said, "Look, children," every time before we went for a nap, "look at Lenin and learn from him. He is constantly sitting at his desk studying, and this is how you should grow up as well. Constantly study and be diligent." And all I could think of at the age of, I don't know, 4 maybe, was like, okay, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. This is a painting. Obviously, he is sitting there all the time. There's no other thing he could do. So somehow throughout my life, I had this ability, I guess, to see beyond the bullshit, but that made life very difficult, because there is so much of it out there. And beyond that, I always saw patterns. And only in recent years, I realized this is actually a trait of people who are neurodivergent. Um, but what happened was that throughout the years, I've seen these million pieces repeating and repeating, and the same principle in different environments with different situations. And I just couldn't figure out what this pattern was. And you said, I have a PhD in epidemiology. Epidemiology is basically statistics. It is seeking patterns, right? So I was on a path of seeking what this damn pattern is. And then about 6 years ago, it all fell into place. It all materialized. One of the things that I don't write in my book, I think, and I don't tell many people, but I feel this is a friendly environment, is that I also channel. So I'm what's called an automatic writer. So what happens is that I sit and knowledge flows through me into my hand and I write it. And part of that universal knowledge, I guess, was passed on to help me materialize this model so that I can share it with as many people as possible in the world to help people awaken from our environment of cone riddled stupor, I call it, or oppressive systems that brainwash us, if you will, that make us buy into them and feel that this is normal life. So I think this was sort of the purpose. And then I sat for 2 years while I was working, starting to write it. And then I realized, holy shit, pardon me, I will not be able to write this big thing while having a full-time job. So I left my job and then I dedicated 3 whole years to just writing this and researching, because there was a lot of research. Even though the knowledge was given to me, the knowledge is given, but but the foundations and all the background, it all requires a lot of research and work and writing. So that's my why.
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. I absolutely love that you're a channel and that this is just flowing through you. Sharing with the group and other people that have known me, I'm in the process of trying to get my book to the finish line. And I realized I've tried to take time off and I've always on the go. And it's really hard to find space. Um, and so, um, especially because there is beautiful research and you're bringing so many different different concepts, your theories, and all of your patterns that you see, but you also um, bring in so many other aspects of sociology and just beautiful things. I have one more question, and then I think if you want to share, um, it's just, I mean, I could talk to you for days about this, and I probably will. So it was kind of interesting to me. Um, you talked a little bit under, like there was the core certainties and cultural dimension. You're bringing so many things in, and then you mentioned something about science and dimensional universes. And so I just wanted, if you could start with just a little bit more about the connection there, and then I'd love you to, come out, share a little bit more in depth with us, because I think it's the type of book that, you can read it on your own, but I'm like, you can see all my stickies already. I have so many things I want to like delve into, but would you mind just kind of, if that's a good starting point, is that okay?
Sure, any starting point is a good starting point.
Yeah.
Yes, so so for people who haven't read it yet, and I know that some have joined today and they haven't read, and I said that's okay. I'll speak to it so that it's not you're not completely out of the. Just to clarify, a cone, which is why my book is called CONEtrolled. So my model is shaped like a cone. Now I'll explain it in a bit. But what it really means, a cone is a system that is dogmatic and oppressive, and that gets our buy-in to it to believe it and to support it and to maintain it. So that's a cone. When I speak about science, and I don't know specifically which passage but so maybe I'm not answering, but you'll tell me if I hit it or not. A lot of the systems, the big systems and the small systems, because it's on all scales of life. A cone can be a single individual, it can be a couple, it can be a family, a community, and science, for example, is one of them. And I'm a scientist by training, so you cannot blame me for being an anti-science freak or whatever it is. But I was educated in the arms of modern science, and I know it quite well from different perspectives. But as I said, I've always seen beyond the bullshit as well. And unfortunately, modern science is a cone. It is a system that keeps us within its parameters. And we can be free thinkers so long as we are within its parameters. And anytime we step out of it, I call it, this analogy I like using is, the dog collar that shocks the dog if they pass a boundary, right? Our cones put on us these mental shockers where we know that when we start crossing the line of was drawn for us by the cone, we get shocked. And the shock is some kind of penalty. And it can be a simple penalty like shaming, and it can be, getting us in trouble with the law. It can be firing us. It can be shunning us, ostracizing, killing us, depending on the cone. Yeah. And as we grow up, we learn from experience and from seeing other people's experiences where these parameters are, and we don't cross them. And unfortunately, in modern science, this is also what's happening. We have our parameters. Our modern science is only what we can see, measure with our tools, right? See, hear, feel, measure with our tools. And anything that is beyond that, anything that, let's say, crosses over into what we call, or what the science calls spiritual, right? It is ridiculed. It is discredited. People are shamed. People lose their research funding for going into that area. That's where the shocker is, right? That's where that's the parameter. And even within science, even when you are within the perimeters, there is the scientific orthodoxy that doesn't allow you very easily to change the existing knowns, even though science by nature is about experimenting and discovering new frontiers. So when I say science and all the levels, multidimensional levels, these are like even multiple dimensions are only acknowledged by some physicists, and even they tread really lightly so as not to be accused of being spiritual or, God forbid, religious, right? So that is part of what a cone can look like, even when it is really progressive or seemed progressive. I don't know if I answered your
Oh,
question.
it's absolutely amazing because I think that is the whole dilemma, right? Of we need proof and we need, like, especially in the science field, right? So to actually believe that there are more than five senses, or that there is another, like, it's beyond three-dimensional, right? So it's, I think it's a fascinating time, and your book is like really, it kind of addresses this. And it also, I mean, the whole thing about systems and everything else, I mean, even the photo itself, like, that really hit me when I saw, like, we're, I've had other things where it's, you're caged, but actually the cage you can open if you really want to. But here, like, we're just stuck in this. And, until you start to open your eyes, so to speak, to see like what is really happening in our systems and structures. And I mean, I'm just so looking forward to more. I see that Andrea has her hand up. So if you want to come out and ask a question, and then I do again, Nav, I do want to allow you to kind of um, go through anything you want to share with us for a little bit as well. Come on out, Andrea.
Hi,
Thank
hi,
you.
Helen. Thank you for organizing this. Hi, Nava. Nice to meet you. I only read chapter one on the Kindle version, but I read as a Romanian living in communist Romania until 1989. Then Romania was not a communist country anymore. And so reading this chapter, by the way, I love the introduction. I love how you explain language. I think, of course, I've never read all the books in the world. I'll never will. But from what I read so far, you are the first author I see who, before anything else, starts to say, this is the language that I have chosen and used. Here's this why, and it's valid now. It may change, and here's why. And so I really loved all the ways you brought in the introduction. This really was like pre preparation for what the whole book is and how you're writing and thinking. So it like prepared us for what's next. It really was a mirroring of what was to be in the next chapter, in the chapters, basically. So thank you for that. Inspiring, by the way. Clear
Thank
and inspiring.
thank
And in the first chapter, reading as a Romanian living in Canada about a communist country, and Canada and the US, which I'm a bit familiar with, like all these things came up for me, and I was like, yeah, everything you presented. I studied the cultures being individualistic, and I was studying in commerce. I read a book about that. So nothing, I believe in synchronicity. I believe everything comes at the right time. The connection with Helen is interesting also. So this book comes at a time where I'm learning as a mother that unless we learn how to think, to see patterns, how to notice the patterns and wonder about them, we won't be able to develop as humans who have the capacity to think for themselves and make better choices and live in how we are in community. So this idea from information to formation, which is something I'm learning through something else, but like in your book, I see, if you want, the result of what my father told me. You got to learn how to think, but he didn't teach me that, or other people tell us, math, see the patterns. And I'm like, yeah, you want me to memorize and see the patterns? No, it's not going to help me. Like the cone we are living in, whether it's a smaller or a bigger one, whether it's in Romania or Canada, we still live in a cone, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love the image, and you help us, even if we don't have the brain capacity, the systems thinking, the questioning and wondering that I'm talking about here. You still give us the picture saying, hey, have you ever looked through life like this? Well, because if you see this, if you can see through my eyes the way I can explain it to you clearly and transparently, this could help you, maybe even save you years and money and whatnot. Just start with this, and then see how you get to that. Like, for me, this is the message that I got from the first chapter. One more thing, Lynn Margulis. Now, Lynn Margulis is a person that I learned about only because of Dr. Bruce Lipton, who mentioned about her. And I'm like, I love Dr. Bruce Lipton. Ergo, whatever he's talking about, maybe I should look into myself. And I noticed they did a documentary on her. I watched that with my family twice, and it's still
Isn't it
not enough.
mind-boggling how they shut her down every time?
Yes. And somehow in this documentary, which is available at the Toronto Public Library, she was able to speak. She was seen and heard and valued. One thing I'll never forget is when she takes a soil, basically from the beach. She takes something from the beach, she takes sand, and she says, this is bacteria. Something like that. And if you look into it, you will see that all the connections. And that was interesting that you put her in the book. So all in all, for me, is I see connections in the connections you're making. It's like smaller connections for me, and the bigger connections you're making. Very interesting and insightful. Helen, I would say that this is the kind of book where you could read once, twice, 10 times, 100 times. You could read with your family. You could read with another culture, another mini culture, the bigger culture, like wherever you would go. Anybody, anytime can take something out of it. And I think one important thing which I would talk about to everybody about this book, I'm actually thinking of sharing to many, is especially when we're thinking of bringing something helpful inside a community to help individuals and families and whatnot, is looking at all of us as a mix of all this and being aware of all these cones and all these systems we're part of, we're thinking, we're nurturing, and then wondering, how do we make one out of that? How do we find the common ground? Which for me, the word is humanity. How we find humanity in everything that's real for every single one of us, and it's not real for every single one of us, so that everybody can feel loved, supported, seen, valued, I don't know, respected, whatever is the common ground in this. So an interesting read. I'm looking forward to read the next.
Thank you so much. Oh, you're going to enjoy the next chapters. I also mentioned Ceausescu at a certain point. You'll see the example. So I'm going to jump forward just because you've mentioned it. It's how do we spread this? So this book is really for a very select kind of reader, right? Not every reader would want to read that kind of, hefty book, I call it. Even though I tried writing it in a very conversational language, so it's not like high English or whatever, but still, it can be intimidating for many people. But I'm also writing, this is a spoiler, I'm almost at the end of, I've created what's called Controlled Essentials, which is a short version in a very friendly, almost youthful language, and it's all illustrated. So it's for teens and anyone else who is not a big reader, but really wants to learn this and explore this, and it's sort of a fun read. And short, much shorter read. So that's one. And another thing, you said you're a mother. I wrote a book that I haven't published yet, but it's all in the works. That's called Bottled, and Bottled is actually for children. And it is the same concepts, but it is an allegory. So think about Animal Farm, right, by George Orwell. This is an allegory with a pear that is grown inside a bottle. And it is an allegory of us growing inside our cones. But this is a rebellious little pear who is a female pear on purpose. Even there's no such thing, but that's okay. And she starts questioning the wisdom of the tree and the butler and all these things. So when it comes out, this is another wave that I want to sort of help parents and educators. You spoke about teaching people how to think. Well, this is how we start thinking. We start thinking through simple allegories, through genuine, honest, uncensored conversations with our children. And then helping them grow up from bottled to coned essentials, and maybe eventually as students into the real control, the big one, so that they start, because from my experience with people who have read this book, and I've delivered workshops that I will talk about next time, they all say, once I got what the cone is and I understood how it works, I can no longer unsee it. I see it everywhere. I recognize it. I see the signs. I recognize it. And then it forces me to ask the questions. Well, what the hell? How do I, did I subscribe to that? Was I knowingly following it or unknowingly? How do I climb out of it? Right? So I think it is a powerful tool simply because it is simple. It is not a complex one. So if you're okay, I can continue with explaining for, those who haven't obviously gone through the whole book, if that's okay.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I'm going to share, so you can share if you want to share any slides or anything as well. Because I think that's why we decided to do this over 3 sessions versus just one 1 hour book club type thing. The book circle, why I call it a circle, is because I want to share, and it's evolving. But these dialogues are so important. So I'm going to do that. So you can come on. Yeah, this is fantastic. I can't wait for that, for the bottled book, for the program, for the essentials. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Should be able to share now, I think, Nava.
Yeah. I also developed a self-diagnostic tool, but again, I will talk about it later on, maybe next time. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All there.
I will move a little so I can see it as well.
Just before you go, I loved how this kind of, because I thought right away of Maslow's hierarchy, right? So again, when you start to kind of look at that too, and it's fascinating. Anyway, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So here's the cone. The cone is basically, it starts from the bottom and it climbs to the top. And it starts with the most basic thing, which is our core certainties. I will speak about each of them briefly, and then the things that we are completely sure about, they are the things that inform how we see problems, what is problematic in our lives. These problems inform, so what do we need to do about them? That's the needs. The need says, okay, I need a solution. So we form a solution based on the need, based on the problem, based on our core certainties. These solutions, once they catch, we turn them into a system so that we can spread it, so that it can be sustainable and accessible. But gradually, we then turn it into dogma, which locks the whole thing. And dogma is that uncompromising, the one true solution with the electric fence around it. And the 2 arrows are not just to show that it grows from the bottom up. These are 2 distinct arrows. On one side, these cones are grown based on our well-intended, our good intentions, right? We want solutions for our problems. And we believe in the solutions that we come up with. So these are the well-intended motives. But on the other side, it is grown by profiteers, or the people who profit, have something to profit from this cone growing into a cone, from this solution becoming a dogma. And it can be power, it can be money, it can be status, whatever this profit is. And they push the solution into a dogma and they keep it there. The reason it's a cone and not a triangle, like the Maslow's pyramid of needs, is because, in my mind, it encloses us, right? It is a three-dimensional structure that sort of sits on top of us, like we catch a spider in a glass, that kind. And that's why it's a cone. And the reason it's a cone is because every stage that we move up becomes narrower and narrower and narrower until the tip locks it in a very narrow solution and way of being. So yeah, I won actually 5 awards. I forgot. That's okay. Yeah. So let's start with core certainties. Core certainties, I compare it like to a tree. So think about the tree with all the roots. So like an iceberg, we don't see the roots, right? It's underground. But the roots grow everything out of it. So it starts with core certainties. And the reason I call it certainties and not core beliefs is because a belief is something that you can believe or not believe, whatever. A certainty you do not revisit. A certainty sits inside very, very deeply. We are certain of it. That's it, right? And it's underground. We don't even remember our core certainties. Where do they come from? They come from all kinds of things. Our cultures, our racial narratives, generational trauma, our gender narratives, our personal traits, our life experiences, governance models, anything that you can think of, they water our core certainties underground. These core certainties that we believe in create our picture of reality. And our picture of reality then feeds into what is not the stem, whatever, English.
The trunk.
A trunk, thank you. Phew. The trunk, which informs our problems and they inform our needs, and then the solutions. And what we usually see is the fruits, right? What we usually see are the things in our lives, our religions, the technology, medicine, media, use of fossil fuel, all of these things that are our reality. And then what happens is this vicious cycle, because what we see reinforces our core certainties. Well, of course we live with money. That's our core certainty, that we can't live without money. And because money feeds the fruits of our solutions, we see it every day. It reinforces our belief that there's no other way of living, right? So there's this cycle of certainties and the reality that we see. You spoke earlier about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is one example of how our core certainties feed our reality and our solutions. So Maslow came with this, and I think we are all familiar, at least with the concepts, right? It starts with physiological needs. We first need to eat, we need water, we need air, all these, and then we need to be safe, and then we need to be loved. And eventually, if we have time and leisure, and if we have nothing else left to do in life, we will self-actualize, right? Whereas there is a different model that was developed by indigenous people, in this case, the Blackfoot Nation or Siksika, and their pyramid stands on its head, if you like. They say, first of all, you have to self-actualize. Because if you self-actualize and then you can build your community and then you can create cultural perpetuity, obviously your personal needs will be taken care of. Obviously you will be safe because you will know who you are, because you will have the community that takes care, and everyone takes care of everyone. So you will have like the safety and the needs. This is an offshoot of the real important things, right? So you can see how core certainties can create a whole different way of life. And we can see that many indigenous peoples around the world who have this in mind live a very different kind of life and build a very different kind of culture of living than what we know as modern cultures, Western cultures. So we said core certainties feed problems. Okay, let's be honest. Problems can be real, right? I mean, natural disasters, you cannot argue whether it's a problem or not. But apart from these drastic ones, most other things that we consider to be problems in our lives are dictated or informed by our core certainties. So for some people, traffic can be a huge problem, whereas for others, it's an opportunity to listen to their favorite book. For some people, there's a fracture of your identity because you are keep being told that you're not beautiful enough, white enough, smart enough, man enough, whatever enough. And, social media can be a great gift and a great curse. It can be a gift and it can be a terrible problem. So our problems are in the eyes of the beholder. Here's a quick example of cultures. So let's say that you come from an equality-driven culture. Your core certainty will be that people are different, but everyone is equal, regardless of differences. And therefore, your understanding of what a problem is when people are not treated equally or justly. That would be seen as a problem. But if you grow up in a culture that's very hierarchical and traditional, where your core certainty is that because people are different, obviously they cannot be equal, they will be layered by their value. In that kind of a society, a problem definition will be when the higher ranked people don't get what they want and need. Whereas the problems or issues of the lower ranked people who are supposed to serve the needs of the higher ranked people are not a problem, not the societal problem anyways, right? So these are very different based on how we see the world. Okay, we move to the next stage, needs. Okay, so now we have the problems, whether they are well-defined, ill-defined, doesn't matter. Now we have a need. But the problem is that the road from a problem to a need is not linear as we would think it would be. So remember this? So let's say that in an equality-driven culture, the normal need that we would expect would be that therefore we need for everyone to be equally addressed, right? In everyone's problem. Whereas in a hierarchical society, the need will be defined. We must address the problems of the higher ranked first, right? That these are the needs. So problems lead to needs. But needs can be easily manufactured. One of the examples I bring in the book is the story of the Listerine. I don't know if you're familiar. If you're in marketing, you would know this. But if you're not, let me tell you. So Listerine is that thing that we rinse our mouth, right, to reduce inflammation or kill bacteria, mouth bacteria. The story is that Listerine was developed as a disinfectant for floors in medical facilities. It was the Clorox, right, that you use but it was a very narrow market. So the producers said, how do we make more profit? How do we expand the market? You know what? The odor that we have in our mouths, it comes from bacteria in our mouth. So what happens if we rinse our mouth with this disinfectant, not swallow, just rinse and spit, and it will kill the bacteria and there will be less odor. But the problem they had was that at that time, in the early 1900s, the odor of your mouth was not an issue. And same thing with sweat or human odors were normal. No one considered it a problem. So how do you create a problem when there's no problem? you call it something clinical. So they came up with a term that's called halitosis. And halitosis is a disease. It is a clinical condition that causes you to have bad breath. Yeah. And then they said, well, not only is it a clinical condition, it is shameful. And so they had this whole campaign shaming people for having, bad breath, especially women, as you can see, because women were always targeted for shaming, right? So here you have a woman who's rejected by her man. You have a woman who's rejected by her boy. It was like brutal. And of course, we have a solution. You just have to rinse your mouth with our Clorox. And it will solve all your societal problems. And it worked so well to this day, right? That in the marketing world, it is called the Listerine ploy. And marketing companies use this same method by manufacturing a problem where there is no problem, so that you will be worried about that problem and buy their product to solve their problem. Okay? So that's one way that our problems or needs are manipulated. But it's not different. So that was in 1920s. Now it's 2020. 100 years later, we're still on the same hamster wheel, where now influencers tell us that if we don't use their facial creams and lift and whatever, we will look old and shame on us for aging, right? So it's the same story. And this is just an example. Natural needs, let's go with Maslow, okay? So shelter, rest. But nowadays, it's not just, oh, you need water, drink water. No. There's a manufactured need. You need to drink designer water. You need a mansion to feel worthy. You need an expensive vacation to feel rested. You need a designer's clothes, not just any clothes, right? So you need selfies to belong. All of these things are manufactured needs. Now, the other thing is that we confuse problems with their symptoms. And sometimes we are made to confuse them, right? So, for example, I have a headache. What is my natural need? I need to identify and treat the source of my pain while trying to reduce it. Agreed? It makes sense. That's the need. Why do I have a headache? But the manufactured need is I need to eliminate my pain as quickly and easily as possible so I can move on with my busy day. Forget the reason, right? I have a symptom. I need a solution to my symptom. One of the examples I give in my book, and this is a comic from my new one, the illustrated one, is the story of the wise men of Chelm. So if you don't know it, these are sort of old Jewish tales that are very funny and teach you a lesson kind of thing. So the story is that there was a village that expanded, and it ended up building on two neighboring mountains. And in order for people to cross over, they built a bridge, but they did not maintain the bridge. So it became very rickety and untrustworthy. And some people, when they crossed the bridge, they would fall into the valley, get severely injured. By the time they would be hauled out of the valley and brought to the hospital on the mountain, they would perish. So then the wise people of Chelm sat 7 days and 7 nights, and they came up with the solution to this problem. And their solution was to build a hospital in the valley. And, problem solved. Now they could bring people to the hospital really quickly. And this is a really funny and ridiculous example of the wrong need for the problem. But how is it different from a painkiller? Because what the wise men of Chelm did, is they ran a study to see whether indeed the hospital decreased mortality rate of the ones who fell from the bridge. And indeed, it decreased the mortality rate, right? So it was a proof for them that their solution was the best one. But how is it different from studies on painkillers that show that indeed, within 50 to 30 minutes, you will have much less of a headache? Forget the fact that you will have it again 2 hours down the road, or tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, because it does not solve the problem. See, so we are caught in cycles of not figuring the problems, the needs in the right way. Next, the solution. Okay, so one of the problems with us coming up with solutions is that we love quick fixes, right? We just love it. We want one potion to solve all our problems, from hair loss to bad marriage, right? And so we follow people who promise us this one quick solution to all our problems, which truly doesn't work. Even a headache can have multiple reasons and will require multiple strategies to address, right? And we just love quick fixes and one in all. The other problem with solutions is that they are ego driven. Think about even our exploration of the moon. We were led to believe that it was a scientific breakthrough, that it was our scientific desire to learn about our universe. But in reality, it was an arms race during the Cold War. It was the USSR against the US, who will get there first to show superiority in the sky, right? It was not about scientific exploration, ever. And the reality is that when we invest in wars, that's when we put all our money and resources, not in science. If we have some scientific something happening there, it's a bonus. And here you see in the image the ego boost, if you recognize the dick-shaped.
I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah, of Zuckerberg, who really has some problems I will not discuss, then this is something that he invested a lot of money and possibly advanced some technology, but only to boost ego. So these are some of the solutions. We know some solutions go astray simply because our brain is not wired to see multiple elements like a domino that falls in 1,000 directions. We can't foresee what one move can create, how one move can create a whole cascade of events. And so sometimes we are well intended. Mao Zedong, for example, he said that sparrows eat all the grain. So let's kill all the sparrows so that farmers will not suffer from birds that eat their grain. So they started the sparrow side. They got money for bringing dead sparrows, right? They killed all their sparrows. And then what happened? Well, lo and behold, nature doesn't like it. So then the locusts thrived because there were no birds to eat it. And then the locust came and ate all the crop, and 36 million Chinese people died of starvation, right? So that was not the intention, obviously, but sometimes we just create bad solutions because we do not think 5 steps forward or sideways. Same thing, which we are now seeing yet again 100 years later, the tariff war that brought about the Great Depression, right? So we put tariffs, then the other ones put tariffs, no one buys anything from anyone, Great Depression. Again, the intention of tariffs originally was to boost the local economy so that the local producers would sell for higher prices, but that's not how it played out. Unfortunately, not everyone studied history. So in an ideal world, when we have a problem, it's an actual problem, right? It's not a manufactured problem. Every problem has at least a few actual needs that we have to address this one problem. And every actual need will create several solutions so that eventually we will have a whole basket of good solutions to address this one problem. But in our world, what happens is that, first of all, we might misdiagnose the problem or it's manufactured for us. Then we create, we have a misdiagnosed or manufactured need, and that leads to all the wrong solutions, either ineffective or even harmful, because there are so many other external forces that drive it in the wrong direction. Then we have the system, and the system is methodological. Sometimes it becomes systemic, meaning it is embedded within the system that we live in. It aims to be useful or valued, and it aims to be sustainable or profitable. But systems also have downfalls, because systems are limiting by nature, and systems are also, they become, I call them, they develop self-consciousness. They become self-preserving. And I give an example in the book. When you get to that chapter, you will read it, how, even the best intended nonprofits can become systems that focus more on self-preservation than on their initial problem solving or initial solution to help others, because it becomes self-conscious. The last one is dogma. And dogma, that's the one true solution that you can no longer argue with. So very quickly, what shifts? So in a system, the leadership is usually appointed and democratic. In a dogma, it's usually a takeover, it's autocratic, and it's pretend democratic. Now, in my book, I give a lot of examples from the world, but I will leave you with the thought, we live in Canada. Do we live in democracy? And my answer is no. And you can keep reading the book and find out why. The next is the problem. While it's a system, the problem is unfortunate but natural. There are problems in life. What do we do? But when it becomes a dogma, the problem is always someone's fault. It's either your fault because you're not a believer enough. It's either someone else's fault. So you have scapegoats who are to blame about everything that went wrong. The need in a system is to maintain a well-defined system to address the problem, right? It maintains the solution, sometimes in a rigid way, but it maintains it. But in a dogma, the need is completely different. The need is no longer solving the problem. The need now is for the subjects to comply with the dogma and obey the cone masters. That's a whole different kind of need. And the system, the solution, is that it starts with systemic induction, and then it turns into indoctrination. We will speak next time about what it is. Leaders manage solutions, serve users, and then they become, they govern, the subjects obey instead of being served. The power at the beginning is divided between leaders and users, but when it's a dogma, true power is only with the cone masters. And then eventually, in a system, we say we don't really need other solutions, and we scrutinize other solutions, but they exist and they are allowed. Whereas in a dogma, there's no discussion. There's only one solution, and any other solution is either dangerous or prohibited. So you see the progression. And the progression narrows and narrows, and it narrows not just the solution, it narrows our freedoms. It narrows our voice, our agency. So I don't, how long do we have? Sorry, because I can talk forever, but
yes, you know what? I usually go to around 11:15. I probably should put that in the registration, but that's okay, because I do wanted to make sure that you got through, and then have some questions. I want to make sure people do have an opportunity, but again, because it's 3 parts, we can continue. And I mean, this is a really good base setting, I think. So unless anyone has a question right now, they could hop out. But if people have to hop off, that's okay too. But we'll keep going for till about 11:15, probably. Yeah. So we're getting close to 11 now.
So thank you. Yeah. So again, the dogma is one true solution. It's systematic. It aims to become systemic. It is self-serving and exploitive, even when we don't know it and we don't feel it. It is hierarchical and oppressive, and it's self-preserving at all costs. And you will see in next time what cost we pay for a cone to preserve itself. So the next session, we will speak about cone psychology and machinations. So basically, how do they recruit us? How do they make us believe them? How do we, I call it the magical role reversal, where we become our own enforcers within, and other people's enforcers within that cone. So we become the animals in the zoo that keep the rest of the animals in cages instead of the management of that zoo. All right. This is my, if you want to check out my website for all the things I do, you have the QR code. But now, questions, I welcome.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Thank you. In hindsight, and it's funny because I had thought about making them an hour and a half, but that's okay. It's okay. I just think giving that overview was fantastic. Yeah, your website is Nava. What is it? NavaInc.com.
Yes, I will.
I believe, yeah, and we can share that out. Yeah, so we want to stop the share. I know people probably might have to go, but that's okay too. You'll have to do that, I think. Stop the share there so we can see each other. There we go. Yeah, so this was fantastic. I mean, here's the thing. So many of us lived and didn't really understand the systems we were in, right? We're kind of like, there's so much to unravel as far as, wherever you are in the world. And again, your lenses and your home and everything. But, like you said, once you see things, you can't unsee them. And so I think, really your examples too throughout the book and what you shared today about, not looking at the solutions that could really solve some of these problems. And there's so much wrapped up in that. There is the profit. There is the, if you think about the whole pharmaceutical industry as an example, and that is it. It's like, let's just prescribe something, the Band-Aids. And I've been there before. I actually have been off medication for several years. I don't take anything right now. But I had been at a point where, yeah, I just sort of blindly trusted, right? Without any thinking. And it's kind of interesting because I have this other book I haven't started, Beyond Blind Blaming, because it's, there's always that. There's so much. I mean, you definitely need a program to kind of spend more time. Do you, Andrea or Elizabeth, do you have any questions? I want to make sure that, on what was covered, or even anything in general that you have for Nava, because this is really about her and her body of knowledge. And I also agree, Andrea, I love that part at the beginning, because I believe language has so much impact, and, the words we choose, there's so many things. You can catch yourself sometimes saying something that you're like, oh, that's just been ingrained again in me because of where I live and everything around me. So, yeah, Andrea, did you say you had another question, or?
Yes, I wrote it in the chat. I don't know if you write about this in your book, Nava, at the end or somewhere. So please forgive me if you answered this. But I was wondering, as a human and writer specifically, you said it took you 3 years to write the book, if I understood well. And, the time around that, after that, everything related to this book, what does it mean to you, or what did it mean to you? Like, what did it what all this brought to you, because this is this process of writing as a writer and author, I know, or creator in general, everything we do also has something for us. Everything we put out there in the world shifts something in us or transforms us or has gifts for us or wanderings, or there's always something happening with the author along the journey. So I would love to hear if you could share a little bit about what it meant to you. What's the most important thing that came up out of this for you?
Absolutely. Thank you. This is an incredible question. The writing journey was painful. It was painful because I delved into the depths of darkness from every direction. And I've seen that darkness throughout my life, but writing about it, researching about it, spending 12 hours a day in it, it really brought me down. And once in a while, I had to sort of come up for air because it was so despairing as well, right? It's all around us. It's everywhere, right? And and that was such a despairing, and at a certain point I thought, I, I don't want to write a book that will have people despair from this world. That is not the purpose at all. And then as the channeling continued, I was brought into, don't worry, this is the awakening part, which has to be the dark side of the soul, right? You have to go through the darkness to emerge into the light, because so long as you live in this imaginary light place, you can't truly heal from anything. You have to go through it to get out of it. And so that's why my last chapter, my last portion of the book is the positive part. It's that, what do we do now? How do we get out of it? How do we rebuild our lives? And I give examples of just how possible it is and how existing it already is in the world. But I must tell you, it was grueling for me. It was so difficult. And I think that, you said it does something to you also. And it certainly did something to me, because after more than 5 decades, I just turned 60 the other week. After more than 5 decades, I suddenly had an awakening of my own, where I realized that I was raised by two abusive, narcissistic parents whom I idolized and served my whole life. And narcissists are the epitome of cones, right? Like, if you want to understand a cone, if you understand a narcissist, that's a cone, right? Every layer, every behavior, every tactic, every strategy is a narcissistic strategy. That's cones. And the problem is, remember I said there's this magical reversal where you serve the cone and you believe in it and you idolize it. It is so difficult for us to rescue ourselves, to see the cone from the outside and say, this is shit. I don't want that. This is bad for me, right? How did I ever think that they were wonderful? How did I ever think that this was not harmful? And when you start realizing it, there's another phase of this darkness, of this self-blame, of this pain, of this, I was so stupid, I can't believe I did it. But that's a natural part of leaving a cone, of stepping out of a cone. You go through this and then you bring yourself to this forgiveness, a forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of them. Not, when I say their forgiveness, not excusing them, but letting go of them. Letting go of the hold they have over you. And it's true for every cone, not just relational. It's true for every cone. So for me, it was a general revelation. It was a personal one. And I truly hope that it serves many other people in that way.
Wow.
Can I have a follow-up? Just a quick question to know
let me
about.
just
Sorry. Yes.
let me just just to get my thought out, Andrea. Thanks if you could hold. I just wanted to thank you for sharing that and bringing this up, Andrea, too. But the healing part is something that I really resonate, because I think, um, going through that and recognizing and awareness, and that is the whole awakening, right? Is understanding and awareness, and then healing yourself. And, it heals the generations before, because the forgiveness piece, there's so much wrapped into that. So I really think that unless we are working on that, the inner, and all healing all those relationships, and yes, accountability is part of it, is part of how we can reclaim that freedom as well, right? Because it's not about anybody else doing things to us. But we're going to have so much more wonderful discussion. So thank you for that. And so sorry, Andrea, I just wanted to get that thought out, because my mind would let it go.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to add to what you're saying. One of the things that I say in that last uh, um, chapter of my book is that this is one of the most difficult things that we will have to do. This awakening and this healing. This is not an easy thing. It is a journey through hell. And I strongly suggest that people who go through this don't do it on their own, that they look for supports, that either personal supports or professional supports, because this can break you as easily as it can build you, right? And if you're not supported through passing through this hell and reckoning, I don't want to be responsible for re-traumatizing anyone. It's really important that people go through this journey fully supported in any way that they can.
Beautiful. Yeah, Andrea, come on out and kind of follow up your thought. I think, sorry to interrupt you. The healing journey that I'm on is really where, again, things come to you for a reason, and just also those systems. I've been in part of many, the legal system, education system, there's so many things. So just, yeah, appreciate you bringing that up. So if you want to continue, and then we're going to probably wrap up after that.
I already put in the chat. I'll just want to say your segue was beautiful, Helen. Actually helped me put words in the chat and question. Basically, this doesn't need to be answered today, but exactly like you said, Nava, people do need support, and listening to you as somebody who went through different systems, as a writer, the next question listening to you was, do you have that in your book? At the end, after all the journey, while we're going with you through the things where we're like, I need to breathe, I need my somatic practitioner, I'm going to stop reading now because it's so heavy, I'm discovering so many things, right? This has been happening in the first chapter for me, not that heavy, but I'm just, I've been supported, and it's okay for me now, but years back, I would be like, I can't read this book. So the question is, if at the end, when you have the light, I didn't read the chapter, but it's about the light after, at the end of the tunnel, if that is that thing where like, okay, so here's how, it would be great if you have a way to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I said, I'm developing, final phases of developing an online, I would call it course, but really it's not a course. It's sort of a supportive online system where I call it the self-exploration, the cone self-exploration, because I also developed tools that, for example, will help you identify your vulnerabilities to cones. What are you vulnerable to? Whom are you vulnerable to? What kinds of lies will play well with you, right? So that you can go through this tool, and then there's another tool that shows you that you make the inputs to draw out of you who are the cones in your life, who are the people or the systems that are the most harmful in your life, whether you realize it or not. So and then the last part is, so what do you do now, kind of thing. So there is a supported journey, and in that module as well, I speak about please be supported by a psychotherapist, a friend, a coach, someone who will handhold you through this if you can, so that you are always safe. And in that, I implant after every module, there's a module of release, sort of. So one is a dance, the other is a breathing, the other, because we need that, because as you said, some people will start it and say, I can't, this is too much, this is opening up, a can of worms that I can't swallow, right? Absolutely.
Wow. I'm so glad we're doing this. And I mean, what a beautiful way to share this over the last part of the year and going into next year, and just, having supports, finding that. Elizabeth, I want to thank you for being here. If you have any question, you don't have to put your camera on. You can hop out or put it in the chat. And if not, that's fine too. I do want to be mindful of people's time. And I can't wait for next time. And maybe I'll update. Do you think we should book an hour and a half instead? Or, I mean, it is, the first part was probably the longest, but I do want to be mindful of people's time. So, but I'm happy. I have time. I can go continue as well. I just want to let people know. That's why most people think it's about an hour, and then they'll hop off. But
And we
yeah,
can definitely do an hour and a half, and if people need to leave earlier, that we
yeah. I'll just make sure and I'll book it, because I think it's just, and it's so. There's another woman, I was reading a book, and it was called Sovereign or something. So this question you asked, which we'll end on, of is Canada a democracy? I mean, and she writes a lot, and there's chapters about the whole concept of our freedoms and freedom. So I think that that's going to be really wonderful to continue to unpack this and share together. And so I just want to thank everybody for coming. And I just have been so, thank you, Andrea, for your comment. This book circle itself has just been something I just look so forward to, and creating this community to connect through my love of reading and learning. But I find we do, sometimes you can just read it and you're like, okay, but to actually go through it together and go in deeper and be able to ask the person that actually wrote it questions is just fantastic. So I'll leave that with everybody.
Thank you
Nava,
so
yeah,
much.
final word to you.
I so appreciate you inviting me over, and I will join the forum for the next ones as well, not just for my book. And I really love this concept, and I so enjoy discussing it and hearing other people's inputs and perspectives, and even just learning that even for one person, if it made a difference, and it awakened something or brought in hope, that was worth it. That's it.
Amazing. So we'll see you next time. It's a couple weeks from now. And yeah, thank you, Andrea, Elizabeth, everybody else that showed up earlier. And I will hopefully see many of you next time. And in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day and the rest of November. I can't believe it. The time is
The snow is
yeah.
there.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see you all next time, hopefully. So thanks
Thank
again, everyone.
you.
Thanks again,
Thank
Nava.
you.
Take care.